On a summer afternoon, in the Wind River Valley, a white Toyota Tercel sat parked along a gravel road near the base of Shoshone National Forest. The engine was off. The windows were rolled up. A camera rested on the front seat, beside a sunflower seed wrapper and a set of keys. The driver's door was unlocked, and the young woman who had driven that car to this remote place was nowhere to be found. It was the 24th of July, 1997. Amy Roe Bechtel was 24 years old. She had been married for less than a year. She was training for a marathon. And in the space of a single afternoon, she stepped out of her vehicle and into a mystery that has remained unsolved for more than a quarter century. The particulars of that day have been examined countless times by investigators, journalists, and amateur sleuths alike. The timeline has been reconstructed minute by minute. The geography has been mapped and remapped. The list of people who saw her, spoke with her, or may have encountered her has been scrutinized in exhaustive detail. And yet the central question remains unanswered. What happened to Amy Bechtel on that warm Thursday afternoon in the mountains of central Wyoming? Did she meet with an accident while running one of the trails she loved? Did she encounter a stranger with malicious intent? Did someone she knew cause her harm? One has yet been able to imagine or explain. The white Toyota Tercel would become the most enduring image of this case, a silent witness to whatever transpired. Found the next morning by searchers, it offered almost nothing in the way of clues, no signs of struggle, no blood, no evidence that anyone other than Amy had been inside. Just a car parked along a road in the middle of nowhere, waiting for its owner to return. The keys in the ignition, the camera on the seat, everything arranged as if Amy had stepped away for just a moment and would be right back. That she never came back is the fact around which everything else in this story revolves. To understand the weight of her absence, it is necessary first to understand who Amy was before she became the subject of headlines and search parties. She was born Amy Lynn Roe on the 24th of August, 1972, in Douglas, Wyoming, a small town in the eastern part of the state, where the high plains stretch toward the Laramie Mountains. Her family was rooted in the ranching traditions of the region. Amy grew up with the kind of self-reliance and physical confidence that comes from spending childhood outdoors. She was athletic from an early age, drawn to sports that required endurance and mental toughness. By the time she reached high school, she had developed into a standout runner, competing in cross-country and track events with a determination that impressed her coaches and teammates alike. Douglas, Wyoming sits at the confluence of the North Platte River and Antelope Creek, a town of about 5,000 people that has changed little over the decades. Rolling grasslands punctuated by the occasional butte or ridge, the kind of country where you can see for miles in every direction. Growing up there gave Amy an appreciation for open space, for the rhythm of seasons in an agricultural community, for the particular beauty of a place that many outsiders might find harsh or empty. Her family raised her with traditional values, with an emphasis on hard work and self-sufficiency. She learned early that achievement came through effort, that talent alone was not enough. Amy's gift for running became apparent in her teenage years. She had the lean build of a distance runner, the mental toughness required for the sport, and the willingness to push through discomfort that separates serious competitors from recreational joggers. Cross-country running in Wyoming is particularly demanding. The altitude alone is challenging. With most of the state sitting above 6,000 feet, the weather can be brutal with bitter cold and wind that cuts through any number of layers, and the terrain is unforgiving, with hills and rocks and trails that test even the fittest athletes. Amy thrived in these conditions. She competed for her high school team with distinction, posting times that earned her recognition beyond the borders of her small town. After graduating from high school, Amy enrolled at the University of Wyoming in Laramie, where she studied elementary education. The university sits at more than 7,000 feet of elevation, making it one of the highest in the country. For a distance runner, training at altitude offered advantages that would pay off in competition at lower elevations. Amy continued to develop as an athlete during her college years, running both cross-country and track, pushing her body to new levels of performance. Her times improved steadily. Her dedication was evident to anyone who trained alongside her. She was not content to merely participate. She wanted to excel, but running was only one part of who Amy was. She had chosen elementary education as her major because she genuinely loved working with children. She had a natural warmth, an ability to connect with young people that her professors and cooperating teachers noted consistently. She was patient and creative in the classroom, able to explain concepts in ways that made sense to children who were struggling. Her goal was to become a teacher, to spend her career shaping young minds, to make a difference in the lives of students, the way her own teachers had made a difference for her. Those who knew her could easily picture Amy at the front of a classroom surrounded by eager faces, doing the work she was born to do. She was also deeply curious about the world beyond academics and athletics. Amy loved being outside, whether hiking, camping, rock climbing, or simply sitting beneath the vast Wyoming sky. She had a photographer's eye for natural beauty, often carrying a camera to capture the landscapes she moved through. She read widely, thought deeply about her place in the world, and engaged with ideas in a way that went beyond her formal education. Friends remembered her as someone who was genuinely interested in other people, who asked questions and listened carefully to the answers. She was the kind of person who made those around her feel seen and valued. It was at the University of Wyoming that Amy met Steve Bechtel. He was a rock climber with a growing reputation in the outdoor community, a man who approached the vertical world with the same intensity Amy brought to running. Steve had grown up in Lander, Wyoming, a town that had become a destination for climbers from around the world. He knew the crags and cliffs of the Wind River Range as well as anyone, and he had ambitions to make a career in the climbing world as an athlete, a guide, and eventually a coach. When he and Amy began dating, it was a meeting of kindred spirits, two young people who shared a love of wild places, of physical challenge, of the kind of freedom that comes from testing the limits of the body in natural landscapes. They climbed together, hiked together, camped under stars together. They talked about the future, about the life they might build, about the places they wanted to go, and the things they wanted to accomplish. Steve introduced Amy to the community of climbers who gathered in Lander. Each summer, a diverse group of athletes and adventurers who had made the town their base. Amy fit in easily, her natural warmth and her athletic credibility, earning her acceptance among people who might otherwise have been skeptical of outsiders. By the summer of 1996, Amy and Steve had decided to marry. The wedding was held in Lander, a town of roughly 6,000 people nestled at the foot of the Wind River Range. It is a place of striking beauty surrounded by some of the most dramatic terrain in the Rocky Mountain West. The Wind River Range rises to the west, its granite peaks reaching above 13,000 feet, its glaciers feeding streams that wind through alpine meadows and dense stands of pine. The town itself has long attracted outdoor enthusiasts, climbers, runners, and anyone seeking proximity to wilderness. For Amy and Steve, it was an ideal home. He could pursue his climbing. She could train for the races that were becoming an increasingly important part of her athletic identity. Together, they could build a life rooted in the landscapes they both cherished. Anyone who has spent time in Lander understands its particular appeal. It is small enough that neighbors know one another, that community ties run deep, that newcomers are welcomed, but also watched until they prove themselves. The outdoor culture is pervasive. Conversations in coffee shops turn to beta on climbing routes or trail conditions. People wear their athletic pursuits as markers of identity. The gear shops and guide services that line Main Street testify to the centrality of outdoor recreation to the local economy. And beyond the town, the wilderness stretches in every direction, offering infinite possibilities for adventure and solitude. Amy and Steve rented a house on Baldwin Creek Road, a few miles outside of town. It was a modest place, suitable for a young couple just starting out. But the location was ideal. The mountains were visible from the windows. The trails were close at hand. The rhythm of their daily lives was shaped by training schedules and weather patterns, by the cycle of seasons that determined when certain climbs were possible and when certain races were held. They were happy by all accounts. The marriage was young, but it seemed solid. They had plans. They had hopes. They had every reason to believe that the future would unfold as they imagined it. By the summer of 1997, Amy was preparing for the Lander 10K Classic, a local race scheduled for the end of July. She was also helping to organize the event, scouting potential routes through the foothills south of town. This was the kind of work she relished, combining her love of running with her instinct for community involvement. The race would bring runners to Lander from across the region, showcasing the trails she loved to a wider audience. Amy threw herself into the planning with characteristic energy, driving the back roads to evaluate potential courses, meeting with other organizers, handling the logistics that such events require. She spent her days moving between various responsibilities. She was teaching fitness classes at a local gym, sharing her athletic knowledge with others who wanted to improve their conditioning. She was training for her own races, putting in the miles required to compete at the level she aspired to. She was managing the household, handling the errands and tasks that fill anyone's life. And she was looking toward the future, thinking about the teaching career she hoped to begin, the family she and Steve might start, the years of life that stretched ahead of her. To those around her, Amy appeared happy, engaged, and full of plans. Thursday, the 24th of July, 1997, began like many of her summer days. The morning was clear, the temperature already climbing toward the 80s as the sun rose over the mountains. Amy woke early in the house she shared with Steve on Baldwin Creek Road. Steve was planning to spend the day climbing at Wild Iris, a popular crag about 25 miles south of Lander. The limestone cliffs there offered some of the best sport climbing in the region, and Steve was working on routes that would test his abilities. The plan, according to Steve, was for Amy to meet him there later in the day after she finished her errands. Amy had a list of things to do that day. She needed to stop by a camera shop in town to pick up photographs she had ordered. She wanted to scout a portion of the race route near Burnt Gulch Road, checking the terrain and taking notes for the organizers. She was hoping to get in a training run, logging miles that would keep her sharp for the upcoming race. It was a full agenda, but manageable for someone as organized as Amy. She was accustomed to juggling multiple responsibilities, to fitting everything into the available hours, to making the most of each day. Steve left the house sometime in the morning, heading south toward Wild Iris with his climbing gear loaded in his vehicle. He later told investigators that he expected to see Amy at the crag that afternoon, that they had discussed the plan before he departed. The exact time of his departure would become a matter of some dispute, as would the details of his movements throughout the day. At the time, these seemed like minor inconsistencies, the kind of fuzzy recollections that anyone might have about an ordinary day that only later became significant. In retrospect, they would take on greater weight. The morning unfolded without incident. Amy drove her white 1996 Toyota Tercel, into Lander, where she was seen by several people at various locations. She stopped at a photography shop downtown sometime around mid-morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. A clerk there remembered her coming in to pick up prints, exchanging pleasantries, and leaving in good spirits. She was wearing running clothes, which was not unusual given her training schedule. The clerk noticed nothing out of the ordinary, no indication that Amy was anxious or distressed, or that anything was wrong. From the photography shop, Amy's movements become harder to trace. She may have stopped at other locations in town. She may have spoken with other people who did not come forward later, or whose recollections proved unreliable. What is known is that at some point after leaving the shop, Amy headed south out of town toward the Loop Road area. This was a network of gravel roads and trails that wound through the foothills between Lander and the higher elevations of the Shoshone National Forest. It was familiar territory for her, a place she often ran, and a logical choice for scouting portions of the race route. The Loop Road area is characterized by a mix of public and private land, with scattered residences interspersed among large tracts of forest. The terrain rises gradually from the valley floor, with sagebrush giving way to pine and aspen as elevation increases. The roads are gravel or dirt, often rough and washboarded from traffic and weather. In summer, the area sees moderate use from hikers, campers, fishermen, and others seeking access to the backcountry. On any given afternoon, a person could drive for miles without encountering another soul. The last confirmed sighting of Amy occurred between 2:30 and 3 o'clock that afternoon. A local resident named Todd Skinner, a well-known rock climber in the area, reported seeing Amy's white Tercel heading south on Highway 28 toward the Loop Road. Skinner knew Amy and Steve through the tight-knit climbing and outdoor community in Lander. He recognized the vehicle and assumed she was heading out to train. He did not stop. He did not speak with her. He simply noted her passage and continued on his way. That brief observation, a glimpse of a white car moving along a mountain highway on a summer afternoon, would become the final piece of verified information about Amy's movements that day. There may have been other sightings that afternoon. Investigators received reports from individuals who believed they had seen Amy or her vehicle at various locations in the Loop Road area. Some of these reports placed her near Burnt Gulch Road. Others put her elsewhere. The accounts were sometimes contradictory, sometimes vague, sometimes offered by people whose credibility was difficult to assess. In the chaos of the early investigation, sorting reliable information from noise proved challenging. Many potential leads were followed up, but none provided a clear picture of what happened after Todd Skinner's sighting. What happened in the hours that followed remains unknown. At some point, Amy's Tercel came to rest along Burnt Gulch Road, a remote gravel route that branched off the Loop Road about 9 miles south of Lander. The area was sparsely populated, with few residences and limited traffic. Dense forest flanked the road on both sides, and trails led off into the backcountry in several directions. It was exactly the kind of place a runner might choose to train away from cars and noise, surrounded by the quiet of the mountains. But it was also the kind of place where help would be hard to find if something went wrong. Some people asked themselves whether Amy planned to run that afternoon, or whether she simply stopped to scout the area for the race. The presence of running clothes and her athletic routine suggests that a run was likely, but the camera in her car hints at another possibility. Perhaps she intended to photograph potential race routes, documenting the terrain for the organizers. Perhaps she was doing both, combining a training run with a reconnaissance mission. Whatever her plan, she parked her car along the road, gathered what she needed, and stepped out into the forest. She never returned. By early evening, Amy had not returned home or contacted Steve. This was unusual. She was reliable, the kind of person who kept her commitments and stayed in touch. When she failed to appear at Wild Iris, as planned, Steve began to grow concerned. He left the climbing area and drove back toward Lander, scanning the roads for her car. The route between Wild Iris and Lander passes through the Loop Road area, and Steve later said he looked for signs of Amy along the way. He did not find her. As the hours passed and darkness fell, his concern deepened into alarm. By nightfall, Steve had contacted Amy's family and reached out to local law enforcement. A search was organized almost immediately. Friends and family fanned out along the roads south of Lander, driving slowly, calling Amy's name, hoping to find her stranded with a broken-down vehicle or walking along the shoulder after some mishap. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office dispatched deputies to assist. By the early hours of July 25, a significant effort was underway to locate the missing woman. The first tangible discovery came that morning. Searchers located Amy's white Toyota Tercel, parked along Burnt Gulch Road, roughly 9 miles from Lander. The vehicle was unlocked. The keys were inside, resting on the seat beside a camera and a sunflower seed wrapper. There were no signs of a struggle, no indication of what had happened or where Amy had gone. The car simply sat there as if waiting for its owner to return. But Amy was nowhere to be found. Anyone who has lived in mountainous terrain understands the particular unease that comes when someone goes missing in the backcountry. The wilderness can be both beautiful and unforgiving. A twisted ankle on a remote trail, a sudden change in weather, an encounter with wildlife, and the vastness of places like the Shoshone National Forest makes finding a single person extraordinarily difficult. There are thousands of square miles of timber, rock, meadow, and drainage. The terrain is steep and broken. Visibility is limited by vegetation. Even experienced outdoors people can become disoriented. The initial search for Amy Bechtel proceeded on the assumption that she might have suffered an accident while running. Search and rescue teams fanned out from the location of her car, covering the trails and roads within a widening radius. Tracking dogs were brought in to follow her scent. Helicopters flew overhead, scanning the forest for any sign of movement or color that might indicate a person in distress. Volunteers joined the effort by the dozens, then by the hundreds, walking grid patterns through the underbrush, calling her name into the silence of the mountains. The community of Lander rallied around the search with remarkable intensity. In a small town, everyone is connected to everyone else by only a few degrees of separation. Amy was known. She was liked. The thought that something terrible might have happened to her was almost unbearable. Businesses closed, so employees could join search parties. Churches organized prayer vigils. The local newspaper ran daily updates on the effort. For a time, finding Amy became the central preoccupation of the entire community, crowding out the ordinary business of summer life. The weather during those first days was favorable for searching. Clear skies and moderate temperatures allowed teams to cover ground efficiently, but the terrain worked against them. The forest was thick in places with downed timber and dense undergrowth that slowed progress to a crawl. The trails split and branched in confusing patterns. Some areas were so remote that reaching them required hours of hiking. And always there was the nagging awareness that Amy, if she was out there somewhere, might be moving, might have left the search area entirely, might be anywhere in thousands of square miles of wilderness. Despite the intensity of the effort, no trace of Amy was found. Not a shoe, not a piece of clothing, not a water bottle or a hair tie, or any of the small items a runner might carry. The tracking dogs picked up her scent near the car, but lost it quickly, unable to follow a trail in any direction. The helicopters saw nothing that warranted closer inspection. The grid searches turned up nothing but the ordinary detritus of the forest. Animal bones, old beer cans, the remnants of long-abandoned campfires. Amy had vanished as completely as if she had never existed. As days became weeks and weeks became months, the character of the search began to change. The initial hope that Amy would be found alive, perhaps injured but recoverable, gave way to grimmer possibilities. For those leading the investigation, the absence of evidence began to suggest a disturbing conclusion. If Amy had simply wandered off and met with an accident, something would have been found. Runners wear bright colors. They carry water bottles and identification. They leave footprints on trails. The fact that nothing had turned up pointed toward a different explanation, one that involved human agency, one that transformed the search for a missing hiker into a potential homicide investigation. From the earliest days of the investigation, law enforcement faced a challenging set of circumstances. There was no crime scene in the traditional sense. Amy's car showed no signs of violence, and the area where it was found yielded no obvious forensic clues. Without a body, without physical evidence, without witnesses to whatever had occurred, investigators were left to reconstruct events through interviews, timelines, and inference. They began by mapping Amy's movements on the day she disappeared, identifying everyone who had seen her and trying to account for her whereabouts during every hour. They also began looking carefully at the people closest to her. This is standard practice in missing persons cases, particularly those involving young women. Statistics show that when a woman disappears under suspicious circumstances, the perpetrator is most often someone she knows: a spouse, a boyfriend, a family member, an acquaintance. Investigators are trained to look first at the inner circle before expanding their search to strangers. In Amy's case, this meant that Steve Bechtel, her husband of less than a year, would come under immediate scrutiny. Steve was cooperative from the beginning, answering questions, participating in the search, and making public appeals for information. He maintained that he had been at Wild Iris all day, climbing with friends, and that he had expected Amy to meet him there in the afternoon. Several climbers corroborated his presence at the crag, confirming that they had seen him and spoken with him throughout the day. But there were gaps in the timeline that investigators found troubling. The climbers' recollections were not always consistent about exact times. Some could not say precisely when Steve had arrived or when they had last seen him. The drive from Wild Iris to the area where Amy's car was found and back could be made in a relatively short time, perhaps 90 minutes round trip, depending on speed and road conditions. If Steve had left the climbing area for an hour or two during the middle of the day, it was possible that his absence might not have been noticed, particularly if climbers were focused on their own routes and not keeping track of one another. This did not prove anything. Many innocent explanations existed for any inconsistencies, but the possibility that Steve could have left Wild Iris, encountered Amy, and returned without detection remained open. He was a grieving husband, desperate to find his wife, and yet he found himself under suspicion. The media coverage amplified the pressure, with some outlets treating him as a likely suspect, even as investigators emphasized that no charges had been filed. Reporters staked out his home. Strangers sent accusatory letters. The whisper campaign in town, while often sympathetic, also included voices that wondered aloud whether Steve might know more than he was saying. Friends and family rallied to Steve's defense, insisting that he was incapable of harming Amy, that their marriage had been happy, that he had no motive to cause her disappearance. They pointed to his visible grief, to his tireless participation in the search, to the love he had clearly felt for his wife. They argued that suspecting Steve was both cruel and counterproductive, that it diverted attention from finding the real perpetrator. But the cloud of suspicion hung over him nonetheless, a shadow that would follow him for decades. Investigators pursued other leads as well. They interviewed everyone who had been in the Loop Road area on July 24. They checked alibis, cross-referenced timelines, looked for anyone whose behavior seemed suspicious. They received tips from the public, some helpful, many not. Psychics called to offer their visions. Amateur sleuths proposed elaborate theories. Each lead had to be evaluated, each tip investigated, each theory tested against the available facts. The work was painstaking and often frustrating. One line of inquiry focused on reports of a suspicious vehicle seen in the area on the day Amy disappeared. Several witnesses described seeing an older pickup truck, possibly tan or beige, parked along the roads where Amy might have been running. The descriptions were vague and sometimes contradictory, but the possibility that Amy had encountered a stranger in a vehicle was taken seriously. Investigators tried to identify the truck and its driver, canvassing the area, running registration checks, following up on every tip that mentioned such a vehicle. No identification was ever made. Another focus of the investigation was a local man who had reportedly made inappropriate comments about Amy in the weeks before her disappearance. He was questioned extensively, and his whereabouts on July 24 were examined in detail. Ultimately, investigators could not establish any connection between him and Amy's disappearance. He denied any involvement, and no evidence emerged to contradict his denials. He was one of many individuals who drew scrutiny, who endured the uncomfortable experience of being a person of interest, and who was eventually cleared, or at least moved to the periphery of the investigation. The FBI became involved in the case, early on, lending resources and expertise to the local investigation. They brought in specialists in missing persons cases, in forensic analysis, in criminal profiling. They helped coordinate the extensive search effort and assisted with interviews of potential witnesses. Their involvement underscored the seriousness with which Amy's disappearance was being treated, but it did not produce a breakthrough. As months passed without answers, Amy's case settled into the grim category of cold cases. The intensive search was scaled back. The daily media coverage faded. Other stories claimed the public's attention. But for Amy's family, for the investigators who had worked her case, and for the community of Lander, the mystery remained an open wound. They had not given up. They had simply run out of new avenues to pursue. Her family has never stopped searching, never stopped hoping, never stopped advocating for her case. Her parents, Joanne and Dwayne Vroe, made finding their daughter the central mission of their lives. They appeared at press conferences, participated in television programs, and spoke with countless journalists, each time pleading for anyone with information to come forward. They marked each anniversary of her disappearance with public appeals, with memorial gatherings, with renewed efforts to keep Amy's story in the public eye. They aged with the weight of their daughter's absence, their lives forever altered by a single afternoon in 1997. The years accumulated. 1 year became 5. 5 became 10. The investigation continued at a lower intensity, with detectives periodically reviewing the case file, re-interviewing witnesses, following up on new tips. Technology advanced. DNA analysis became more sophisticated. Cold case techniques improved. Each development brought renewed hope that something might break in Amy's case, that evidence overlooked or misunderstood in 1997 might yield new insights. But the hoped-for breakthrough remained elusive. It is difficult not to reflect on the uncertainty surrounding those final known moments. Amy drove south from Lander on a beautiful summer afternoon, heading toward the mountains she loved, planning to run, or scout, or perhaps both. She parked her car along a remote road and stepped out into the forest, and then silence. Whatever happened next, it happened without witnesses, without evidence, without any indication of what was to come. The ordinary became extraordinary in an instant, and no one saw the transformation. The investigation into Amy's disappearance has followed many other leads over the years. Dozens of people have been interviewed. Tips have come in from across the country. Amateur investigators have proposed theories ranging from the plausible to the outlandish. Each lead has been pursued, each theory tested against the available evidence. And yet the fundamental mystery remains. Where is Amy Bechtel? What happened to her on that July afternoon? Who, if anyone, bears responsibility for her disappearance? Anyone who has lived in a small town knows how a tragedy can shape the character of a community. In Lander, Amy's disappearance became a defining event, a before and after marker in the town's history. People who were children in 1997 grew up hearing about the runner who vanished. People who moved to Lander in subsequent years learned about her case from neighbors and colleagues. The story has been passed down, a piece of local lore that carries with it a weight of unfinished business. Until Amy is found, until the truth is known, that weight will remain. As the investigation widened over the years, another name began to surface with increasing frequency: Dale Wayne Eaton. A drifter and convicted felon, Eaton had been in the Lander area during the summer of 1997. He was known to frequent the same remote roads and camping areas where Amy's car had been found. His criminal history included violent offenses, and his movements during the relevant time period were difficult to account for. To investigators looking for potential suspects beyond Steve Bechtel, Eaton presented a troubling profile. Eaton was a complicated figure. Born in 1945, he had drifted through the western states for decades, working odd jobs, living on the margins, accumulating a record of offenses that ranged from theft to sexual assault. He was known to camp in isolated areas, to avoid steady employment, to live a rootless existence that made tracking his movements difficult. Witnesses placed him in the Lander area in the summer of 1997, sometimes in the very locations where Amy might have been on the day she disappeared. But placing someone in a general area is not the same as proving they committed a crime. The strongest evidence linking Eaton to violent crime came in 2002, when he was arrested for the 1988 kidnapping and murder of Lisa Marie Kimmel. Kimmel was an 18-year-old woman who had disappeared while driving through central Wyoming on her way to visit her parents. Her body was found months later in the North Platte River, not far from where Eaton had been living. DNA evidence connected Eaton to the crime, and in 2004, he was convicted of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault. He was sentenced to death. The similarities between Lisa Kimmel's case and Amy Bechtel's case were striking. Both were young women. Both disappeared in the same region of Wyoming. Both left behind vehicles that were found abandoned. Lisa's body was eventually recovered. Amy's never was. But the geographic proximity, the timing, and the method of operation all suggested that investigators should look closely at whether Eaton might be responsible for both crimes. The possibility that a serial predator had been operating in central Wyoming in the late 1980s and 1990s could not be ignored. Investigators did look closely. They interviewed Eaton extensively about Amy's case. They searched properties he had been associated with. They examined physical evidence for any connection to Amy, but Eaton denied any involvement in her disappearance, just as he had denied involvement in Lisa Kimmel's murder, until the DNA evidence made denial impossible. Without a body, without physical evidence tying Eaton to Amy, investigators could not make a case. The suspicion remained, but proof was lacking. In 2020, authorities executed a search warrant at a location where Eaton had once lived, hoping to find evidence that might finally link him to Amy's case. The property was excavated and examined with modern forensic techniques. The search attracted significant media attention, with observers hoping that it might represent a breakthrough. The search concluded without providing the answers Amy's family had been seeking for more than 2 decades. Dale Wayne Eaton died in 2024 while on death row for Lisa Kimmel's murder. He was 78 years old. He never confessed to involvement in Amy Bechtel's disappearance. Whatever secrets he may have carried about that July afternoon in 1997, he took them to his grave. For those who believed Eaton was responsible, his death closed one potential avenue for resolution. For those who remained uncertain, the question of his involvement remains open, a tantalizing possibility that has not been proven or definitively ruled out. The connection between Eaton and Amy Bechtel illustrates the broader challenges of cold case investigation. In the absence of a body, in the absence of physical evidence, in the absence of witnesses, proving responsibility becomes extraordinarily difficult. Suspicion is not proof. Pattern is not proof. Even compelling circumstantial evidence is not proof in the legal sense. Investigators may believe they know what happened, may be confident in their theories, and still be unable to close a case. This is the frustrating reality that Amy's family has lived with for so long. Steve Bechtel eventually remarried and continued his career in the climbing world, becoming a respected coach and author. He has written books on training for climbing, has coached elite athletes, and has remained a significant figure in the outdoor community. His life went on, as lives must, even under the shadow of his first wife's disappearance. He has always maintained his innocence and has cooperated with every aspect of the investigation. He has submitted to multiple polygraph examinations. He has answered questions for more than a quarter century. In interviews, Steve has spoken with evident pain about the loss of Amy and the toll the suspicion has taken on him. He has described the surreal experience of being both a grieving husband and a suspect of searching for his missing wife, while knowing that many believed he was responsible for her disappearance. He has expressed frustration at the investigation's focus on him, arguing that it diverted resources from finding the real perpetrator. He has asked the public to consider what it would be like to endure such suspicion while mourning, while searching, while trying to make sense of an incomprehensible loss. Whether one views Steve as a victim of circumstance or harbors doubts about his involvement, his life was irrevocably changed by the events of that July day. The marriage that should have been the beginning of a shared future instead became the prologue to a mystery. The wife he expected to see at Wild Iris never arrived, and he spent the following decades living with her absence and with the questions that absence raised. Whatever the truth of what happened to Amy, Steve Bechtel has paid a significant price. The question of what happened to Amy Bechtel is ultimately a question about the limits of knowledge. We want to believe that every mystery has a solution, that patience and persistence will eventually yield the truth. But the reality is more complicated. Some cases go unsolved, not because investigators fail to try, but because the evidence simply does not exist. Witnesses die, memories fade, physical traces decay. The moment of the crime passes, and with it the opportunity to catch it in the act of occurring. What remains are fragments, hypotheses, and the stubborn hope that something will turn up. For Amy's family, hope and grief exist in a terrible equilibrium. To hope is to believe that Amy might be found, that closure might be achieved, that justice might be served. But hope also requires living with the absence of certainty, with the daily reminder that their daughter, their sister, their loved one is gone without explanation. Grief, in contrast, offers the possibility of acceptance, of moving forward, of making peace with loss. But how can one grieve fully when the circumstances of the loss remain unknown? This is the bind that families of the missing face, a limbo that makes healing almost impossible. It is difficult not to reflect on the particular vulnerability of women who run alone in remote places. Amy Bechtel was strong, fit, and familiar with the terrain where she disappeared. She had every reason to believe she was safe. And yet the very qualities that drew her to the mountains, the solitude, the wildness, the distance from crowded roads and watchful eyes, may have made her vulnerable to whoever or whatever caused her disappearance. This is not to say that women should not run alone, or that Amy made any mistake by training in the backcountry. It is simply to acknowledge the cruel irony that the places we love most can sometimes become the settings for our deepest tragedies. The Wind River Valley has not forgotten Amy Bechtel. In Lander, her disappearance is part of the collective memory, a cautionary tale whispered among runners and hikers, a reminder that the wilderness holds dangers beyond weather and wildlife. Posters bearing her photograph faded on bulletin boards over the years, but the community's investment in her case has not diminished. Each anniversary brings renewed attention, fresh appeals for information, and the persistent hope that someone somewhere knows something that could finally provide answers. Advances in forensic technology have kept the case alive in ways that would not have been possible in 1997. DNA evidence collected from Amy's car has been preserved and retested as new techniques have emerged. Genetic genealogy, the same methodology that has solved cold cases across the country, offers the possibility that biological evidence might one day be matched to an individual. Investigators have expressed cautious optimism that scientific progress could eventually yield a breakthrough, though they acknowledge that such outcomes are never guaranteed. Some people ask themselves why cases like Amy's capture the public imagination so enduringly. Part of the answer lies in the particulars of her story. A young bride, an elite athlete, a sunny afternoon that ended in mystery. But there is something more. Amy's disappearance touches on fears that are almost universal. The fear of losing someone we love without explanation. The fear of what might lurk in the wild, places we otherwise find beautiful. The fear that terrible things can happen to good people without warning or reason. Her story is a mirror in which we see our own vulnerability, our own mortality, our own desperate need for answers in a world that does not always provide them. The white Toyota Tercel that Amy drove on the last day she was seen has become a kind of symbol in her case, a stand-in for the mystery itself. It sat along Burnt Gulch Road, with its doors unlocked, its keys waiting, its camera resting on the seat. Everything about it suggested that Amy had intended to return. She had left nothing behind that indicated flight or preparation for an extended absence. Whatever happened to her, it was not planned. It was not anticipated. It occurred in the space between one ordinary moment and the next, transforming a routine day into a puzzle that has defied solution for more than 25 years. The trails around Burnt Gulch have been walked by searchers so many times that every rock and tree must hold some memory of their passage. Yet the landscape keeps its secrets. The forest floor absorbs footprints. The snow of each winter covers whatever lies beneath. The years pile up like sediment, burying what might have been found in the first days or weeks or months. If Amy's remains lie somewhere in that vast wilderness, they have not been discovered. The mountains endure indifferent to the grief of those who search them. Law enforcement officials in Fremont County have periodically issued statements about the case, emphasizing that it remains open and active. They have asked anyone with information to contact the sheriff's office, no matter how insignificant that information might seem. They have reminded the public that tips can be submitted anonymously, that rewards have been offered, that even small details can sometimes break a case wide open. These appeals have been repeated many times over the years, their language polished by repetition, their urgency undiminished by the passage of time. Amy Roe Bechtel would be in her early 50s now if she had lived. She would likely have become the teacher she trained to be, shaping young minds in some Wyoming classroom. She might have continued running, accumulating marathon finishes and trail miles, finding in physical movement the same joy she had known in her 20s. She might have had children, watched them grow, experienced the full arc of a life well lived. These are the paths that were foreclosed on that July afternoon, the futures that disappeared along with her. To contemplate them is to feel the weight of all that was lost. The investigation into Amy's case continues. Each year brings the possibility that new evidence will emerge, that a witness will come forward, that some piece of the puzzle will finally fall into place. Technology advances. Memories stir. Cold cases are reopened and sometimes solved after decades of dormancy. There is no reason to believe that Amy's case is beyond the reach of resolution, but there is also no guarantee that resolution will ever come. The mystery may outlast all those who are searching for answers, becoming in time a historical curiosity rather than an active investigation. What remains in the absence of answers is memory. The memory of Amy as she was before that July day, running through the mountain air, laughing with friends, planning for a future that seemed full of promise. The memory of her in photographs, frozen at 24, her smile unchanged by the years that have passed without her. The memory of what she meant to those who loved her, a presence that continues to shape their lives even though she is gone. Memory is fragile, imperfect, subject to the erosions of time, but it is also resilient. It persists. It refuses to let go. Standing at the edge of the wilderness where Amy disappeared, one can sense the vastness of the task that confronted searchers in 1997 and continues to confront them today. The mountains rise in wave after wave, their slopes covered with timber, their drainages cutting deep into the earth. A person could walk for days without encountering another soul. A body could lie undiscovered for decades. The landscape that Amy loved is also the landscape that may hold the secret of her fate, a secret it seems unwilling to surrender. The runners who train in the mountains around Lander sometimes think of Amy as they cover the same trails she once ran. They feel a kinship with her, a connection forged by shared passion for the sport and for the landscape. Others simply carry her story with them, a reminder of the risks that accompany solitude in wild places. Amy has become a kind of patron saint for women who run alone, a cautionary figure and an inspiration all at once. The case of Amy Robechtel has been featured in documentaries, podcast episodes, and true crime programs. Each telling adds to the public awareness of her story. Each brings the possibility that someone watching or listening will remember something, will make a connection, will pick up the phone and call with information that could change everything. This is the calculus of cold case coverage, the hope that broad exposure will reach the one person who knows what happened. Whether that hope will ever be realized in Amy's case remains to be seen. The summer of 1997 feels distant now, a time before smartphones and social media, before GPS tracking and ubiquitous surveillance. If Amy disappeared today, there would be digital breadcrumbs to follow, cell tower pings, credit card records, perhaps even footage from a dashboard camera or a home security system. The investigation would have tools that simply did not exist a quarter century ago. This is both a source of frustration and a reason for hope. Frustration because those tools might have solved the case quickly. Hope because the evidence that was collected in 1997 can now be analyzed with techniques that were unimaginable at the time. There is a particular loneliness in being missing. To be missing is to exist in a state of suspended identity, neither alive nor dead, in the eyes of the world. Amy's photograph still appears on missing persons databases, her information preserved alongside thousands of others who have vanished without trace. Her case file remains open, her name still invoked in appeals for information. She occupies a strange category, a person who is simultaneously present in memory and absent in fact. This is the condition her family has lived with for more than 2 decades, an ambiguity that offers neither closure nor peace. If you know something about what happened to Amy Bechtel, the Fremont County Sheriff's Office wants to hear from you. It does not matter how small the detail, how uncertain the memory, how long ago the observation was made. Information that seems insignificant to one person may be the missing piece that allows investigators to complete the picture. Tips can be submitted anonymously. The reward for information leading to the resolution of the case remains available. The family asks only that anyone with knowledge come forward, that they do for Amy what she can no longer do for herself. The road where Amy's car was found has been driven by countless people in the years since her disappearance. Most pass through without knowing the significance of the place, without understanding that they are traversing ground that was once the focus of one of Wyoming's most intensive searches. Only those who know the story pause to consider what might have happened there, to feel the weight of the mystery that lingers over the landscape. For them, Burnt Gulch Road is not just a route through the mountains. It is a place where a young woman's life intersected with something unknown, where the ordinary became extraordinary, where a summer afternoon became a tragedy without end. The white Toyota Tercel was eventually returned to Amy's family. The camera, the keys, the sunflower seeds, all the small artifacts of her last day were cataloged as evidence and preserved. They are reminders of the mundane particulars that preceded whatever happened to her, the everyday objects that took on new significance when their owner failed to return for them. In another context, they would be unremarkable. In this context, they are relics, pieces of a puzzle that remains incomplete. She ran through the mountain air, her feet finding rhythm on the trails, her lungs filling with the thin oxygen of high altitude. Running was meditation, competition, and connection to the landscape all at once. It was a practice she had honed for years, a discipline that had shaped her body and her character. Or it may have had nothing to do with what happened. We cannot know. We can only know that she was a runner, that running was part of who she was, and that she was training in the mountains on the day she vanished. The investigation into Dale Wayne Eaton's possible involvement in Amy's case reflects the broader pattern of his criminal history. He was a predator who targeted women in isolated locations, who used the vastness of Wyoming's landscape to conceal his crimes. His conviction in the Lisa Kimmel case demonstrated his capacity for extreme violence. The question of whether he also encountered Amy Bechtel is one that investigators have taken seriously. Eaton's death in 2024 closed one potential avenue for resolution, as any confession he might have made can no longer be obtained. The parallel between Lisa Kimmel's case and Amy's case haunts those who study both. Two young women in the same region of Wyoming, years apart, but connected by geography and circumstance. Lisa's remains were found. Amy's were not. Lisa's killer was brought to justice, though only after 14 years had passed. Amy's case remains open, the perpetrator unknown, the truth still hidden. The differences between the two cases are as significant as the similarities, but the shadow of Dale Wayne Eaton falls across both. There are moments in the investigation when it seemed that a breakthrough might be imminent. A new witness would come forward. A tip would seem promising. A technological advance would raise hopes that old evidence might yield new answers. Each time the community held its breath, waiting for news that might finally provide closure. Each time the hope faded, replaced by the familiar uncertainty that has defined this case from the beginning. The roller coaster of expectation and disappointment is one that Amy's family knows all too well. The question of why some cases are solved and others remain mysteries is one that haunts those who work in law enforcement. Training, resources, luck, timing, all play a role. Some cases have clear evidence trails that lead investigators to the perpetrator. Others offer nothing but dead ends and false starts. Amy's case falls into the second category, a puzzle without enough pieces to complete the picture. This is not a failure of effort. It is simply the nature of certain crimes, the reality that some perpetrators cover their tracks too well to be caught. Anyone who has followed this case over the years has developed their own theory about what happened. Some believe that a stranger encountered Amy on a remote road and abducted her. Others suspect that someone closer to her was responsible. Still others wonder if an accident of some kind occurred, if Amy lies somewhere in the wilderness waiting to be found. Each theory has its adherents, its evidence, its logic. None has been proven. The truth remains elusive, hiding in plain sight or buried so deep that it may never be uncovered. The physical landscape where Amy disappeared has changed little over the decades. The roads are still rough. The forest is still dense. The mountains still rise against the sky. But the human landscape has shifted. People who were young in 1997 have grown old. Some have died. Memories have faded or been altered by the passage of time. The witnesses who might have seen something crucial may no longer remember what they saw. This is the enemy of cold case investigation. The relentless erosion of information that occurs as years become decades. Yet there is always the possibility that someone has been carrying knowledge all these years waiting for the right moment to share it. Perhaps it is guilt that has kept them silent, or fear or uncertainty about whether what they know is significant. Perhaps they have been watching from a distance following the case, waiting to see if the truth emerges on its own. If such a person exists, the message from those who loved Amy is simple: come forward. Whatever happened in the past, whatever reasons have kept you silent, the time has come to speak. The family needs answers. The community needs closure. Amy deserves to be found. The investigation has been marked by cooperation between local, state, and federal authorities. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office has worked alongside the Wyoming Division of Criminal Investigation and the FBI, sharing resources and expertise in the effort to solve the case. This collaboration reflects the seriousness with which Amy's disappearance has been treated from the beginning. No jurisdiction has been willing to let her case fade away. No agency has declared it closed. The commitment to finding answers remains strong even as the years accumulate. For those who remember Amy from before her disappearance, the memories are bittersweet. They remember a young woman full of life, full of potential, full of plans for the future. They remember her laugh, her smile, her determination. They remember the way she approached every challenge with energy and optimism. These memories are precious, but they are also painful, a reminder of all that was lost on that July afternoon. The Amy they knew exists only in memory, now frozen at 24, forever young. The community of runners in Lander and beyond has kept Amy's memory alive in their own way. Her story has been shared among those who understand what it means to run alone in wild places, who know the particular joy and the particular risk of that solitary pursuit. Amy has become part of the culture of running in Wyoming, a figure who reminds others of what can happen and what was lost. There is a theory that Amy may have witnessed something she was not supposed to see, that her disappearance was not random but targeted. This theory has been explored by investigators who have looked for any indication that Amy might have stumbled upon illegal activity in the remote areas where she ran. No evidence has emerged to support this theory, but it cannot be definitively ruled out. The isolation of the Loop Road area would have made it an ideal location for activities that needed to be hidden from public view. Whether Amy encountered such activities remains unknown. The psychological toll on Amy's family has been immense. To live with uncertainty is to live without peace. Every phone call might bring news. Every passing year might be the one when answers finally come. This vigilance is exhausting, but it cannot be abandoned. To give up hope would be to abandon Amy, and her family has never been willing to do that. They have aged with the case, their hair turning gray, their faces marked by time and sorrow. But their commitment has not wavered. The search for Amy has extended far beyond Wyoming's borders. Tips have come in from across the country, some credible, others less so. Investigators have traveled to follow leads, have interviewed witnesses in distant states, have explored the possibility that Amy was taken far from the place where she disappeared. These efforts have not produced results, but they have demonstrated the reach of the investigation, the determination to leave no stone unturned. There is a particular cruelty in not knowing. When someone dies, the living can grieve. They can hold funerals, visit graves, mark anniversaries. They can begin the slow process of accepting loss and moving forward. But when someone disappears without trace, these rituals are impossible. The missing person exists in a state of suspended animation, neither alive nor dead, present in memory, but absent in fact. This is the limbo that Amy's family has inhabited for more than a quarter century, a limbo from which there is no escape without answers. The case file on Amy Bechtel sits in the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, a physical record of all that has been done to find her. It contains interview transcripts, forensic reports, maps, photographs, and countless pages of documentation. It is a monument to the effort that has been expended, the resources that have been devoted, the dedication of those who have worked the case. It is also a reminder of what has not been accomplished, of the central mystery that remains unsolved despite all that effort. As each anniversary of Amy's disappearance passes, the media briefly turns its attention back to the case. Reporters write stories recapping what is known. Television programs revisit the mystery. Podcasts devote episodes to analyzing the evidence. These moments of renewed attention bring temporary hope that someone watching or listening might have the piece of information needed to solve the case. Then the spotlight fades, and the waiting resumes. The question that haunts everyone who has followed this case is simple. Where is Amy Bechtel? Is she somewhere in the vast wilderness of the Wind River? Range her remains hidden by forest and time? Was she taken from that place and moved somewhere else entirely? Already been collected but not yet properly understood? Or is the truth known only to the perpetrator, perhaps carried to the grave? Perhaps still held by someone who has never spoken? These questions have no answers, only speculation. The small details of that July day have been analyzed endlessly. The timestamps from the photography shop, the route Amy likely took from town, the precise location where her car was found, the items left behind in the vehicle. Each detail has been examined for clues, for patterns, for anything that might point toward what happened. The analysis has been thorough, but it has not been conclusive. The details taken together paint a picture of an ordinary day that became extraordinary, but they do not reveal how or why the transformation occurred. There is something almost mythic about Amy's story, the way it has embedded itself in the consciousness of those who have heard it. She has become more than an individual missing person. She has become a symbol of the unknown, of the dangers that lurk in beautiful places, of the fragility of life and the persistence of mystery. Her photograph, smiling and young, has been reproduced thousands of times. Her name has been spoken in countless conversations. She has achieved a kind of immortality through disappearance, a presence defined by absence. The relationship between the investigation and the media has been complicated over the years. Media attention has helped keep Amy's case in the public eye, increasing the chances that someone with information might come forward. But media coverage has also brought challenges, sensationalizing aspects of the case, amplifying suspicions that have not been proven, and sometimes hindering the investigation with inaccurate reporting. Finding the right balance between publicity and discretion has been an ongoing challenge for investigators and for Amy's family. The town of Lander has changed in the years since Amy disappeared, but not dramatically. It remains a small community at the edge of the wilderness, a place where outdoor recreation drives much of the economy. New businesses have opened. Old ones have closed. The population has grown slightly, but the essential character of the place has remained the same. It is still a town where people know their neighbors, where the mountains dominate the horizon, where the memory of Amy Bechtel is part of the collective consciousness. There are those who believe that the case will never be solved, that too much time has passed, that the evidence has deteriorated beyond usefulness. This pessimism is understandable, but not inevitable. Cold cases have been solved after longer periods of dormancy. New technologies continue to emerge. People change, circumstances change, and secrets that seem secure become known. The passage of time works against investigation, but it does not make resolution impossible. As long as the case remains open, as long as investigators continue to pursue leads, there is reason to believe that answers might eventually come. The search for Amy Bechtel has become in some ways a search for meaning. What does it mean when a young woman vanishes without trace? What does it tell us about the world, about safety, about the randomness of tragedy? These are questions that transcend the particulars of the case, that touch on deeper concerns about how we understand violence and loss. Amy's disappearance forces us to confront the limits of knowledge, the reality that some things may never be known, the difficulty of making peace with uncertainty. The evidence that was collected in 1997 has been preserved with care, stored in conditions designed to maintain its integrity. Biological samples, trace evidence, photographs, and other materials remain available for analysis. As forensic techniques have advanced, some of this evidence has been re-examined. DNA profiles have been developed and entered into databases. The hope is that one day, a match will be found, that the evidence will finally speak after years of silence. This hope is not unfounded. Cold cases have been solved through DNA evidence even after many decades had passed. The runners who knew Amy remember her as someone who understood the spiritual dimension of their sport. Running was not just physical exercise for her. It was a way of connecting with the landscape, of finding peace in movement, of testing the boundaries of what her body could do. She ran in the mountains because the mountains called to her, because the trails offered something that roads and tracks could not provide. This understanding of running as a form of communion with nature makes her disappearance in the wilderness all the more poignant. The investigation has considered the possibility that Amy might have been the victim of a crime of opportunity, that she encountered someone who had not planned to harm anyone, but who saw an opportunity and took it. This type of crime is particularly difficult to solve because there is no prior relationship between victim and perpetrator, no pattern that might lead investigators to a suspect. If Amy was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, encountering a stranger who meant her harm, the chances of identifying that stranger become slim indeed. There are moments when it seems that the truth about Amy's disappearance is almost within reach, that one more piece of information, one more lead, one more breakthrough might be enough to solve the case. These moments are tantalizing and frustrating in equal measure. The investigation has come close before, or seemed to only to reach another dead end. The pattern of hope and disappointment has repeated itself many times over the years. It is a pattern that Amy's family knows intimately, that investigators have experienced repeatedly, that the community has watched from a distance. The question of what happened to Amy Bechtel is not just a question for investigators or journalists or amateur sleuths. It is a question for all of us, a mystery that touches on fundamental concerns about safety, about justice, about the nature of evil. When someone disappears without explanation, the world becomes a little less comprehensible, a little more frightening. The resolution of the case would provide answers, not just for Amy's family, but for everyone who has followed her story. Everyone who has wondered what happened on that July afternoon. Everyone who has felt the weight of the unknown. The Wind River Range will continue to rise against the Wyoming sky long after everyone who remembers Amy has passed from the earth. The trails she ran will continue to wind through the forest, walked by new generations of runners who may never have heard her name. It does not distinguish between those who return from its depths and those who do not. It simply exists vast and indifferent, holding its secrets close. Amy Bechtel entered that wilderness on a summer afternoon in 1997 and never returned. The mountains know what happened. They simply will not say. There are those who believe that Amy is still out there somewhere, waiting to be found. They imagine her remains in some hidden spot, covered by years of fallen leaves and snowmelt, preserved by the cold mountain air. They believe that one day, a hiker or a hunter or a search team will discover what remains of her, and the mystery will finally end. This belief provides a kind of hope. The possibility that physical evidence might still be recovered, that Amy might be brought home at last. Whether this hope will ever be realized remains to be seen. The community of Lander continues to mark the anniversary of Amy's disappearance each year. There are vigils, gatherings, moments of remembrance. Her photograph appears in local news coverage. Her story is retold for those who might not have heard it before. These annual observances serve multiple purposes. They keep Amy's memory alive. They provide an opportunity for the community to express its ongoing concern, and they remind anyone who might have information that the case has not been forgotten. The ritual of remembrance has become part of Lander's identity, a solemn tradition that connects the present to the past. The final chapter of Amy's story has not yet been written. It may never be written. The investigation continues. The family waits. The community remembers. Somewhere, perhaps the truth exists waiting to be discovered, or perhaps the truth has been lost forever, buried by time and circumstance, impossible to recover. This uncertainty is the burden that everyone connected to the case carries. It is a burden that will not be lifted until answers come, if answers ever do. Amy Bechtel was a daughter, a wife, a friend, an athlete, a teacher in training. She was someone's child, someone's partner, someone's confidant. She ran through the mountains because she loved to run, because the mountains called to her, because movement through wild landscapes brought her joy. On the 24th of July, 1997, she drove her white Toyota Tercel south from Lander, parked along a remote road, and disappeared into a mystery that has never been solved. She deserves to be found. She deserves to be remembered. Amy's story is not over. It continues in the memories of those who knew her, in the work of investigators who refuse to give up, in the hearts of strangers who have been moved by her case. It continues each time her photograph is shared, each time her name is spoken, each time someone pauses to wonder what happened to the young runner who vanished on a summer afternoon in Wyoming. Stories like hers do not end when the last chapter is written. They persist, they haunt, they demand to be told again and again until something like resolution becomes possible. If there is a case you think deserves to be told, a story that has stayed with you, a mystery that you believe should not be forgotten, you can share it. These narratives matter. They keep the missing in view. They remind us that behind every cold case is a person who was loved, who had plans and dreams, who deserves to be found. Amy Bechtel was one such person. Her story has been told here, but it is not finished. It waits like she waits for the ending it has not yet received. The geography of central Wyoming plays a crucial role in understanding this case. The Wind River Range stretches for more than 100 miles along the Continental Divide, containing some of the most rugged terrain in the lower 48 states. Gannett Peak, the highest point in Wyoming, at 13,804 feet rises from this range. Glaciers cling to the high cirques. Snowfields persist through the warmest summers. The valleys between the peaks are carved by rivers and creeks that eventually find their way to both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This is wilderness, in the truest sense, vast and untamed, where human presence is dwarfed by geological scale. The Shoshone National Forest, the first national forest in the United States, encompasses much of this territory. Established in 1891, it covers more than 2.4 million acres of forest, meadow, and alpine terrain. The forest is home to grizzly bears, wolves, mountain lions, and hundreds of other species. Its trails wind through ecosystems, ranging from sagebrush steppe to alpine tundra. For those who love wild places, the Shoshone is a paradise. For those searching for a missing person, it is a nightmare of scale and complexity. The area around Lander sits at the transition zone between the high plains and the mountains. Elevation rises gradually as you head south and west from town, the landscape shifting from open grassland to scattered juniper to dense pine and fir. The Loop Road area where Amy's car was found occupies this transitional terrain, neither fully plains nor fully mountains, a zone of mixed vegetation and moderate elevation. The roads there were built for access to timber and grazing land, not for recreation, though recreationists have adopted them over the years. The climate of the region adds another layer of difficulty to any investigation. Summer days can be warm, with temperatures reaching into the 80s and 90s, but nights are often cool, sometimes dropping into the 40s or 50s. Even in July, afternoon thunderstorms are common, bringing lightning, hail, and heavy rain that can wash away traces and obscure evidence. The weather on the 24th of July, 1997, was generally fair, but conditions in the mountains can change rapidly, and local variations in terrain create microclimates that can differ significantly from the forecast. The history of the region is marked by the presence of indigenous peoples, particularly the Eastern Shoshone, whose reservation lies just to the north and east of Lander. The Wind River Reservation, shared by the Eastern Shoshone and the Northern Arapaho, encompasses more than 2 million acres, making it one of the largest reservations in the country. The relationship between the reservation and the surrounding communities is complex, shaped by history, economics, and cultural differences. While the investigation into Amy's disappearance has not focused significantly on the reservation, the region's demographic complexity is part of the backdrop against which the case unfolded. Lander itself has a history that stretches back to the 19th century, when it served as a military outpost and later as a supply point for miners and settlers heading into the mountains. The town was named for Frederick W. Lander, a civil engineer who surveyed the route that would become the Lander Cutoff of the Oregon Trail. The cutoff shaved miles off the journey westward, and Lander became a natural stopping point for emigrants. The military presence established Fort Washakie on the reservation, and the two communities have coexisted, sometimes uneasily, for more than a century. The outdoor recreation culture that defines modern Lander began to develop in the mid-20th century, accelerating in the 1,970 seconds and 1,980 seconds as climbing and other adventure sports gained popularity. Climbers discovered the world-class limestone at Wild Iris in the late 1,980 seconds, and the area quickly became a destination for serious athletes from around the world. The National Outdoor Leadership School, headquartered in Lander, brought thousands of students through the area each year, training them in wilderness skills and outdoor ethics. By the time Amy arrived in the mid-1992s, Lander had established itself as a hub for outdoor enthusiasts of all kinds. This context matters because it shaped the community in which Amy lived and disappeared. The outdoor culture created a network of athletes and adventurers who knew one another, who shared information about routes and conditions, who formed a tight-knit community within the larger town. Amy and Steve were part of this network, connected to climbers and runners and hikers through their shared passions. When Amy disappeared, this network mobilized quickly, contributing volunteers' local knowledge and emotional support to the search effort. The community's investment in finding Amy was genuine and intense. The search area expanded over the first days and weeks as initial assumptions about what had happened gave way to broader concerns. The initial search focused on the trails and terrain immediately surrounding the location of Amy's car, operating on the assumption that she had gone for a run and met with some misfortune. When no trace was found in that area, the search widened to include more distant terrain areas where Amy might have traveled if she had become lost or disoriented. Helicopters surveyed from above, while ground teams covered mile after mile of forest and meadow. The search was complicated by the terrain itself. Unlike flatter landscapes where visibility extends for miles, the mountainous terrain around Lander is broken by ridges, draws, and dense vegetation that limit sightlines to a few hundred yards at most. A person lying injured or deceased could be invisible from even a short distance away. The forest floor is covered with duff, fallen leaves, and decomposing organic matter that can obscure small objects and human remains. The search had to be conducted systematically, grid by grid, leaving no area uncovered, but even systematic searching cannot guarantee that nothing will be missed. The use of tracking dogs in the search illustrated both the potential and the limitations of canine assistance. Dogs can follow a human scent trail for miles under ideal conditions, but conditions in the loop road area were far from ideal. The rocky terrain held scent poorly. The dry summer air caused scent to dissipate quickly. The multiple trails and roads in the area created a confusing network that dogs found difficult to sort out. When the tracking dogs picked up Amy's scent at her car, but quickly lost it, investigators were left with more questions than answers. Had she been picked up by a vehicle? Had her scent been obscured by other factors? The dogs could not say. Helicopters, equipped with thermal imaging cameras, flew over the search area during the first critical days, looking for the heat signature of a living person. This technology can detect a human body from hundreds of feet in the air, even when visual concealment makes direct observation impossible. The cameras found nothing. Either Amy was not in the search area, or she was no longer alive and generating body heat, or she had been moved from the location. Each possibility had different implications for the investigation, but the thermal imaging could not distinguish between them. Volunteers from the community brought their own knowledge of the terrain to the search effort. Local hunters knew the game trails and water sources. Climbers knew the approaches to various crags and bouldering areas. Runners knew the routes that Amy might have taken if she had gone out for training. This local knowledge was invaluable in directing the search to areas that formal mapping might have missed. But even local knowledge has its limits. The terrain was vast, the possibilities endless, and no amount of familiarity could guarantee that the searchers would find what they were looking for. The psychological dimension of the search weighed heavily on those involved. Searching for a missing person is emotionally taxing under any circumstances, but searching for someone you know, someone who is part of your community, intensifies the strain. Volunteers cycled through hope and despair, through determination and exhaustion. Some continued searching long after the organized effort had scaled back, unable to accept that Amy might not be found. The emotional toll of the search would stay with many participants for years, a trauma that the community shared but could never fully process. The failure to find any trace of Amy in the initial search led investigators to consider scenarios beyond a simple accident. If she had fallen and injured herself somewhere in the backcountry, something would have been found. If she had become lost and died of exposure, her body would have been located eventually. The complete absence of evidence suggested that something else had happened, something that removed Amy from the search area entirely, or concealed her so effectively that the most intensive effort could not discover her. Neither possibility was comforting. The investigation into Amy's disappearance required investigators to learn about the specialized world of competitive running. They needed to understand training routines, typical distances, the mental state of athletes during solitary workouts. They spoke with coaches and fellow runners to learn about Amy's habits, her favorite routes, her approach to training. This knowledge helped them develop a picture of what she might have been doing on the afternoon of July 24. But it did not explain what happened next. The running community cooperated, fully sharing everything they knew, but what they knew was not enough. The weather records for the 24th of July, 1997, show a typical summer day in the Wind River Valley. High temperatures in the upper 70s to low 80s. Light winds from the west. No precipitation recorded in the Lander area, though afternoon thunderstorms are always possible in the mountains during summer. The conditions would have been ideal for running, neither too hot nor too cold, with enough daylight remaining in the afternoon for a substantial workout. Nothing in the weather suggested danger. Nothing indicated that conditions might have contributed to Amy's disappearance. The forensic examination of Amy's vehicle yielded little useful information. The car was processed for fingerprints, hair fibers, and other trace evidence. What was found was consistent with a vehicle driven primarily by its owner, with occasional passengers. There was no evidence of a struggle in or around the car. No blood, no torn fabric, no damage to the interior. The keys were in the ignition, the camera on the seat, the sunflower seeds where Amy had left them. It did not reveal what had transformed that ordinary afternoon into a tragedy. The camera found in Amy's car was examined for any images that might provide clues. The photographs on the roll were mundane images from Amy's daily life that predated the day of her disappearance. There were no pictures from July 24, suggesting that she had not used the camera that afternoon, or that she had not had time to photograph anything before whatever happened occurred. The camera became another piece of evidence that raised more questions than it answered, an artifact of intention that was never fulfilled. The timeline of Amy's movements on July 24 has been reconstructed as precisely as possible, but significant gaps remain. Between her departure from the photography shop around mid-morning and Todd Skinner's sighting of her vehicle around 2:30 or 3, several hours are unaccounted for. She may have run errands, visited friends, or stopped at other locations that were never identified. She may have already been in the Loop Road area scouting routes or running trails. The gap in the timeline is not unusual. Most people do not have their movements tracked minute by minute, but it creates space for speculation about what else might have occurred that day. The investigation examined Amy's personal life in detail, as is standard in missing persons cases. Her relationships, her finances, her communications were all scrutinized for any indication of what might have happened. Nothing emerged to suggest that Amy was planning to leave, that she was in any kind of trouble, or that anyone in her life wished her harm. Her marriage appeared stable. Her finances were unremarkable. Her communications showed a young woman engaged with her work, her training, and her community. The investigation found no smoking gun, no obvious explanation, no clear path to follow. The possibility that Amy might have staged her own disappearance was considered and largely dismissed. Such cases do occur, but they typically leave some trace of planning, some indication that the person had made preparations to start a new life elsewhere. Amy had done nothing of the kind. Her identification remained in her possession. Her bank accounts showed no unusual activity. Her family and friends reported no indication that she was unhappy or wanting to escape her life. The evidence overwhelmingly suggested that whatever happened to Amy was not of her own choosing. The emotional impact of Amy's disappearance extended far beyond her immediate family and friends. In a community as small as Lander, tragedy touches everyone. People who had never met Amy felt the weight of her absence, the uncertainty of not knowing what had happened to one of their own. The case became a shared burden, a collective grief that the community carried together. This shared sense of loss has never fully dissipated. Even after decades, the mention of Amy's name evokes emotion in those who remember the summer of 1997. The role of the media in shaping public perception of the case has been significant and sometimes controversial. Early coverage focused on the search effort and the mystery of Amy's disappearance, generating sympathy and support for the investigation. As time passed and the case remained unsolved, media attention sometimes shifted toward speculation about suspects, particularly Steve Bechtel. This speculative coverage frustrated investigators who were working to build a case on evidence rather than suspicion. It also caused additional pain for Amy's family, who saw their loved one's disappearance become fodder for sensationalized reporting. The true crime community has taken an ongoing interest in Amy's case, analyzing the evidence, proposing theories, and keeping the story alive in forums and podcasts. On one hand, it keeps the case in the public eye, increasing the chances that someone with information might come forward. On the other hand, amateur investigation can sometimes lead to harassment of individuals who have been cleared by official investigators, and the proliferation of theories can obscure rather than illuminate the truth. The balance between helpful attention and harmful speculation is difficult to maintain. The evolution of forensic science since 1997 offers hope for future progress in Amy's case. DNA analysis has advanced dramatically, with techniques now available that were unimaginable a quarter-century ago. Genetic genealogy, which uses DNA profiles to identify family connections and narrow down potential matches, has solved numerous cold cases in recent years. If any biological evidence from Amy's case can be linked to an individual through these techniques, a breakthrough might finally occur. Investigators have stated that they continue to explore such possibilities, though they caution against expecting immediate results. The passage of time affects cold cases in complex ways. On one hand, it allows new technologies to emerge and new investigative approaches to develop. Cold cases have been solved decades after they occurred, sometimes through advances that could not have been predicted when the crime happened. On the other hand, time erodes evidence, claims witnesses, and dims memories. The balance between these factors determines whether a cold case remains solvable or becomes a permanent mystery. In Amy's case, investigators continue to believe that resolution is possible, but they acknowledge the challenges that the passage of time has created. The wilderness where Amy disappeared continues to draw visitors from around the world. Climbers come to test themselves on the limestone at Wild Iris. Hikers explore the trails of the Wind River Range. Hunters pursue elk and deer through the forests. Runners train on the same roads and paths where Amy once ran. Most of these visitors know nothing of her story, nothing of what happened on the 24th of July, 1997. They experience the landscape as a place of beauty and adventure, unaware of the tragedy that unfolded there. For those who do know, the landscape carries a different weight, a reminder that beauty and danger can coexist in the same place. The question of closure That much sought-after resolution that families of the missing hope for remains elusive in Amy's case. Closure requires answers, and answers have not come. The family has learned to live with uncertainty, to carry on despite not knowing what happened to their daughter, their sister, their loved one. The wound remains open. The questions remain unanswered. The hope remains alive that someday the truth will be known. Living with ambiguity is perhaps the hardest challenge that families of the missing face, harder in some ways than the grief that comes with certain death. The investigation into Amy Bechtel's disappearance stands as a testament to the dedication of law enforcement professionals who refuse to abandon cases even when the leads have dried up and the years have accumulated. The detectives who have worked this case over the decades have invested countless hours in pursuit of answers. They have followed every lead, interviewed every witness, examined every piece of evidence. Their work continues driven by the same commitment to justice that motivated the first responders in July 1997. The case file may grow thick and the coffee may grow cold, but the determination to find the truth does not waver. There is a particular kind of horror in the idea that someone who commits a crime can escape consequence, that they can walk free while families suffer and questions go unanswered. If Amy was the victim of foul play, the perpetrator has evaded justice for more than a quarter century. This evasion is not justice. It is a failure of the system, a reminder that even the most dedicated investigation cannot always penetrate the veil of secrecy that surrounds certain crimes. The hope is that eventually the veil will lift, that the truth will emerge, that whoever is responsible will be held accountable. But hope and certainty are not the same thing. The story of Amy Roe Bechtel reminds us that every missing person is someone's child, someone's friend, someone's neighbor. Behind the statistics and the headlines are human beings who deserve to be remembered, whose stories deserve to be told. Amy was not just a case number or a name on a missing persons list. She was a young woman with hopes and dreams, with people who loved her, with a future that was stolen from her. Remembering her humanity is essential even as we analyze the evidence and pursue the investigation. She was more than a mystery. She was a person. As this narrative comes to its close, the essential facts remain unchanged. Amy Roe Bechtel disappeared on the 24th of July, 1997, from a remote road south of Lander, Wyoming. Her car was found the next day, but she was not. Despite decades of investigation, no one has been charged with her disappearance, and her remains have never been recovered. The case remains open and active, with investigators continuing to pursue any leads that emerge. Her family continues to hope for answers. The community continues to remember her. And somewhere, perhaps, the truth waits to be discovered.